The title of this story is The Unfortunate Truth. Our story begins with a fairy by the name of Destiny, and quite fitting of a name too. Her grandma has fallen ill with a terminal illness and has only 3 days to live. But once as a child, Destiny heard about two magical leaves that had great or terrible gifts to bestow upon the one who finds them. One leaf grants eternal youth and infinite wisdom, and the other leaf summons the flames of eternal suffering and damnation. The only way to know which is when the leaf transforms into either the mythical fairy of Dryfall Lake or the dragon head of the mischievous Smog, destroyer of entire civilizations in ancient times. Anyone who comes into contact with Smog's flames has their soul set aflame for eternity. It is wise to choose cautiously, but then again, how can anyone know which to choose, especially since the leaves are identical in every way possible? However, if Destiny chooses correctly, she will be able to use her newfound wisdom to make a remedy for her grandma and become the village's medicinal healer as repayment. First, she must go into the labyrinth of the never-ending forest, which no one has ever returned or been heard from again. But Destiny has no choice, since no other way of saving her grandma is known even to the village elders. And so our journey begins. Destiny peered into the labyrinth, unsure if she would ever see her grandma again, but knew that the impossible is only possible when you start somewhere. As Destiny wandered through the never-ending forest, she wondered how it was even possible to have a never-ending forest in such a small place.
I have to turn around?
She could not recall the mention of any creatures or dangers to be aware of from the stories she'd heard, but her grandma warned her that a lonely path could be the most dangerous path of all, as the mind can consume itself in dark thoughts. Destiny took a deep breath and continued for hours, seeming to go nowhere. Hours soon turned into the first day, and the first day turned into the second. Right when Destiny was about to give up, she heard a deep thundering growl surround her. She closed her eyes and shielded herself, but nothing came. When she opened her eyes, a single tree stood in the middle of the forest by itself, but it was distinctly different from the rest. It had no leaves at all. It felt calming to be in the presence of the tree, but also terrifying. Destiny felt that she was in the right place, but was unsure of what to do next. She slowly walked toward the tree, examining it carefully, looking for some sort of clue. It had a single thorn just above the trunk, in the middle of the tree that seemed to be bleeding oddly enough. Destiny reached out with her index finger, and it pricked her finger suddenly, causing her hand to ache and curl in on itself until it could do so no more. She protected her hand from any further harm by the tree, but just in that moment, two leaves seemed to fall from nowhere, gently rocking back and forth from one side to another until they landed at her feet, as if to present themselves to her. Destiny looked closely at both leaves and realized that they were identical in every way possible. Her gut instinct seemed to lead her in the right direction anytime she was faced with a difficult decision, at least until her curiosity overwhelmed it. She frowned at the thought, but nevertheless closed her eyes to see what she felt. She felt humming and low rumbling coming simultaneously from both leaves. She started to worry about her grandma because only hours remained, and in this moment of despair, she could feel breathing on her face. Deep yet quick breaths seemingly from nostrils. She opened her eyes and screamed for the dragon. The dragon's head of Smog was before her. She tried begging Smog to please let her help her grandma, but he responded by opening his mouth and taking the deepest breath he could while grinning ominously. Destiny began crying profusely, and with the first teardrop hitting the remaining leaf, Smog blew the flames of eternal suffering and damnation at Destiny. Destiny suddenly felt calm, warm, and safe, for the teardrop that touched the other leaf summoned the mythical fairy of Dryfall Lake, Elspeth. Elspeth dissipated Smog's flames in an instant, and the same wave of her hand sent Smog flying into whatever seemed to be another world, unknown to Destiny, but a hole in her reality nonetheless. The hole closed a few moments after Smog went flying through it. Elspeth raised Destiny to her feet, healed her wound caused by the tree, and blew her breath onto Destiny. Before Destiny could say a single word, Elspeth told her, "I have bestowed upon you a gift, but I fear that you will not understand the limitations of life. Do good and be well." Destiny suddenly found herself back at her village in her house, in front of the supplies that she used to make all of her remedies. She now knew what to mix and how. She worked quickly, for there was not much time. Once she created the remedy, she ran to her grandma's house, a few houses down, and told her to drink what she had made, and that she would explain in a moment what had transpired. Her grandma Coco drank the remedy and no longer felt any pain or suffering. She smiled, gave her a kiss on the forehead, and thanked her granddaughter. Grandma Coco was impressed by the wondrous story that Destiny told her, but also helped her finish the story with, "I told you so," of course referring to one's mind being any fairy's worst enemy. Her grandma lived for another year, but ultimately succumbed to her cancer, and at that moment Destiny realized what Elspeth had meant by her words, but was still thankful for the extra time granted and the permanent removal of her grandma's pain. The end.